Welcome to The Read Along,
a mini book club for your ears.
I'm your host, Scott.
I'm your other host, Anita.
And join us on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time.
Do you like talking about movies? Do you like talking about mediocre movies? Do you like talking about how you could have fixed mediocre movies? Well, I certainly do, and you can listen to me, Scott C. Bourgeois, along with my co-hosts Greg Beaver and Liam Creswick, as we give our notes, and I have some notes. You can follow it now on your podcatcher of choice, or support it by visiting patreon.com/IHaveSomeNotes. As we record, it is days before Christmas.
Days, mere days.
We are in the thick of all of the holidaying.
God help us.
We've hosted a gathering with friends. We've been to another gathering with friends. We've been to a Christmas concert or two.
2,
3.
3, 4.
Yeah.
I went to one without you.
That's true. Tons of Christmas concerts.
Yeah, oh my God, there's so much Christmas.
And we're getting towards the big day itself. Merry Christmas. Actually, in fairness, by the time this episode drops, it'll be just past Christmas, so hopefully your Christmas was very
merry.
And a preemptive Happy New Year, because that will be what's coming up. So.
It's true, yeah.
So hopefully your 2025 is excellent, better than your 2024. Even if your 2024 was great, I hope your 2025 is better.
Yeah.
And if your 2024 wasn't so great, I definitely hope that it's better.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are so close to the end of our book, too. This is an interesting timing.
Yeah, it's like the third last chapter.
Yeah. So our new book and our new year, they're not going to line up exactly, but awfully close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Fun.
And that'll be a good time. And just once again, if you're just joining us for the first time, just a quick reminder that we will be doing one additional episode on this book after the final chapter, where we will go full book club on it and reveal our next book before we launch into the next book. So hang on tight. Yeah. There's at least like 3 more episodes of this coming.
Yeah.
But I guess we should get into this episode.
We really should.
And we should do that with a brief recap of our previous chapter, Chapter 11, Justice, in which 13 gets taken by the Viking to go and assassinate another portrait.
Yep.
And then they head over to the artist's place to finally end things with her, but 13 can't bring herself to do it. Threatens to self-terminate.
Yeah.
A brief struggle ensues, at which point the Viking realizes his shift is done and this isn't his problem anymore.
He almost literally clocks out.
Yep, and he leaves them to their affairs and tells them if they were smart, they probably won't be in town when he's back on the job tomorrow. And that's pretty much where he left them and where we left them. As we move into Chapter 12, The Hanged Man of 13 Ways to Kill Lulabelle Rock by Maud Woolf. So this chapter picks up right at the tail end of the last one with the artist and 13 both figuring out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They basically just quickly pack up to go. Mm-hmm. Like they've made the decision, this is the correct thing to do. We're going to skip town. We'll be together.
Yeah, we're going to grab some essentials and get out.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like 13 is having an existential crisis.
A little bit.
About all of this.
I mean, 13, first of all, doesn't really have anything.
No, her prized possession, her binder, went up in flames.
The car was totaled.
Car's totaled.
She lost her gun.
Yeah.
So
she wasn't particularly attached to that gun anyway.
And the original clothes that she left the villa with are gone.
Yes.
And the tailored suit she got was destroyed.
Yep.
So the only thing she has left that is her own is the tarot deck, which she packs into her pocket.
Yep. She gets a clean shirt from the artist.
Yep, and the artist packs really light, and 13 is like, well, what about all of your everything, like all of the art that you made? And the artist is like, it's fine. It's not good.
She's like, it's not good. And 13 has a weird sensation about this, because even though it's not good, and everyone acknowledges that it's not good.
Including the artist.
Yeah, it still has like a lot of meaning to 13?
Yeah.
At least to 13, if no one else.
13's like, but you made this. It is valuable. We should take some of it. And finally, they have a little fight. They have their first fight.
Aww.
And then the artist consents to let 13 at least keep the blanket that she slept under the first night
Yeah.
she spent the night.
And I think 13 convinces the artist to grab a notebook so that she could at least keep writing.
Yeah.
Something, right? You got to keep something.
Yeah. And then they pack into the artist's beat up old car.
Oh, that car.
And they begin making their way out of town. But they don't get far before 13's like, no, this isn't right. I have one more name to check off my list.
This is where I think 13 is really experiencing that crisis. It's this horrible pull between wanting to leave, knowing that that's what she wants to do. She wants to leave. She wants to go. And this deep internal need that she has, that she was programmed with to fulfill her purpose.
But at the same time, like, she's almost kind of made up her mind that she doesn't even necessarily want to kill the next portrait.
No.
She needs the closure of finding out who it was at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what she wants to do here. And the artist is like, all right, well, maybe I can help you figure out who's left, because obviously I'm aware of who some of the other portraits were, which 13 gets a little indignant about. Like, oh yeah, like the secretary and Belle, who you were keeping in touch with. And the artist gets the description of how she assassinated the last portrait from the tower.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you were probably shooting at a downtown hotel. That was likely Amelia. She called herself that because she's always jet setting after Amelia Earhart.
Yeah.
Because she's the Lulabelle who goes and does all the international engagements. I didn't even know she was in town, but that's probably who you were taking out.
She's like the travel version.
Yeah, so
right?
we do finally get to know who she shot.
Which makes me feel better.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, that means that there's really only one left, and she's at the hospital. And are you sure you want to go? And 13's like, yes, I do. I think I need just the finality of it. But as they make their way to the hospital, 13 starts to get suspicious because she's like, well, wait, we're portraits. We can't get sick. How is this one in the hospital? And the artist is like, well, you know, it's probably better that you find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And so they both make their way up because 13 insists the artist come with her. And they make their way through the busy hospital. And they make their way to like a palliative care wing where they find the final Lulabelle, who hasn't been accounted for, dying and hooked up to assorted life support systems.
Yeah, I was going to say, basically they find like a frail and weak, tiny little Lulabelle.
Though the name on the door is P. Craigs.
Yeah.
So she's in there under her real name, Prudence Craig.
Under her real name.
13 realizes immediately this isn't a portrait.
No.
This is the real Lulabelle.
Yes.
This is the human being that all the portraits were made out of. And she is on her deathbed.
Yes.
Implicated, cancer.
Yes.
She's frail. She's on life support. And we know that Lulabelle was a smoker. Mm-hmm. And she actually, there's a fun little bit later in this chapter where she asks 13 for a pack of smokes because she wants another cigarette.
Yeah.
So it's probably cancer. And she clearly does not have long.
No. Well, and everyone around her is like, she's fading fast.
Yeah, she's hanging on, but she's not got long. And the artist is like, are you going to kill her? And 13 is like, no, I don't think I was even going to, but like, this is devastating. Well, and she's also a little hurt and betrayed that the artist didn't just say this was the original Lulabelle. This is human Lulabelle.
Mm-hmm. Well, the impression that I got from the artist in their conversation before they got to the hospital was that discovering real Lulabelle was something you sort of had to do for yourself when you're a portrait of Lulabelle.
Well, and not just that, but there's also, to an extent, the artist is like, I thought you knew more than you know. You were the person who was tasked with taking all the portraits out, but it seems like you got shockingly little information about it.
And she did.
And so the artist was also working under the assumption that 13 knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And perhaps even knew more than the artist did about the motivations behind this, but clearly she doesn't. So I think the artist is a little surprised at how little in this moment 13 is revealed to have known about everything.
Uh-huh. Which means, at least to me, that all of these other portraits that were created, not all of them, but the older portraits anyway, were given a lot more information.
Yeah.
My guess is because they were meant to be a little more long-term.
Well, and some of them might have been actually activated by Lulabelle.
Yeah.
The later ones, not so much.
Not so much.
They were activated by someone with an ulterior motive. Couple things happen here that I think are worth mentioning. One is that 13 now understands what Spencer meant when he picked up the phone and said, "Have you found her?"
Yes.
She now realizes what he meant was, "Have you found the real Lulabelle?"
Yes.
And then when she clearly had no idea what he was talking about, he was like, "Nope, I'm not going to spill the beans."
Nope, never mind.
Changed the subject.
Yes.
But clearly he knew what was going on, and he was waiting for her to find it, much in the way that the artist was waiting for her to find the real Lulabelle.
Yep.
So was Spencer. Number 2, a familiar face comes in.
Yeah, friend Marie.
Yeah, at the time that the artist goes to give 13 a couple minutes alone with Lulabelle, Marie comes in, dressed as a nurse, and when asked is like, "No, I work here." And this is where things clicked for me, finally. Because there's some stuff in this chapter that makes it a little more explicit, but we finally know who Marie really is.
Yes.
Marie is the martyr.
Yeah.
The martyr, as previously mentioned in the book, who was the person who founded the city, or at least led settlers to where the city ended up being and then got hacked to pieces.
Yeah. For whom the park is dedicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Marie, she notices, is like stitched together. And earlier in the book, the magician mentioned when the martyr does appear, and it's very rarely happened, and it only happens at special times, has appeared stitched together. She mentions that she's all over town because that's how things are.
Yep.
She is noted by the magician earlier in the book to be the patron saint of fools. And 13, much as she identifies with the death card, starts the book in the fool card. She's
true.
the fool. She also at one point gets asked, "What do I do?" And her answer is, "Well, you can lead people to water, but you can't force them to drink." And what did the martyr do? She led people to water, and then they murdered her.
And then they murdered her.
And then they martyred her for it. So, yeah, she is in fact a patron saint who's been helping 13 out throughout this journey.
Yeah.
And does say, "This is going to be the last time you see me."
I don't think does she say it outright?
She might not say it outright, but she definitely implies, like,
Oh yeah.
we're done here now.
Well, yeah. If nothing else, 13 gets that impression. Like, this is probably going to be the last time I ever see her.
But it does explain why Marie has been so serendipitous and so helpful throughout.
Yes.
Because she's had 13's back this whole time.
Which is interesting. Nice, but interesting. Like, she's helping death.
But is she?
I don't
Because at one point in this chapter as well, 13 does say to the artist, like, "My purpose is to be death." And the artist counters with, "No, your purpose is to be loved."
I have nothing else to say to that.
But I think that's a good counterpoint. At any rate, back to the plot that's afoot.
Yes.
Outside of that ancillary stuff, we now know for sure we were kind of correct earlier on. The real Lulabelle is dying. She's not dead, but she is dying, which means that the Lulabelle who sent 13 out on this quest was a portrait.
Yes.
More importantly, that means that a couple chapters ago, when she killed a Lulabelle back at the villa, it didn't matter which one it was.
No.
They were both portraits.
They were both portraits.
Both arguing that they were the real Lulabelle, and they were both actresses, so it's immaterial which one that she killed.
It's, sad but true.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Though I have a suspicion that she did, in fact, kill the body double, and not the actress.
Probably.
Seems likely.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. But that then brings up the question, why did the portrait Lulabelle, presumably the oldest portrait Lulabelle, because it was hinted at that there was one before Prudence,
Right.
and now we can strongly identify that as the actress, who was probably activated when Lulabelle got sick.
Or possibly even before then.
Hard to say. Maybe she was the original body double.
Maybe.
Either way, we can pretty safely identify that that's the Lulabelle in question. Why is she killing off the other portraits?
Well, I had posited a theory, but I think I have defeated that theory in my head already.
Oh, no. Well, walk us through it.
Okay, well, my first thought was that she was going to decommission all of these other portraits because she knew the original Lulabelle was dying, right? And that's what happens when a human dies, all of their portraits get decommissioned.
Mm-hmm.
Except she put a page for the human Lulabelle in the murder binder.
Which we find out the artist was the one who tore out that page.
Yes.
Yep.
Which says to me, oh, no, that's not what's happening.
Because one of the targets was explicitly
the human Lulabelle.
the human Lulabelle.
Right? So now it seems a little more obvious, or there's a stronger argument at least, that Lulabelle Prime, the portrait,
Mm-hmm.
wants to be Lulabelle.
Lulabelle number 1
Yeah.
wants to be Lulabelle.
Yeah.
And I mean, Spencer has kind of indicated that he's in the market for a new Lulabelle because Lulabelle's big money. And if the original Lulabelle, the human Lulabelle, is dying, Spencer seems connected enough with mitosis, and Lulabelle is big money enough that it's very plausible that they could fudge things so that one of the portraits is Lulabelle now.
Yes. Eventually that ruse would come to light, though.
Would it matter, though? And would it
don't know.
And would it be harder for that ruse to come to light if there was only one Lulabelle?
Well, that's just it. The only one Lulabelle, though, would never age. So eventually it would be obvious that she was a portrait. Also, we don't actually know what happened to Belle.
Also
we know
true.
she was taken away by mitosis. We don't know if she was actually decommissioned.
We don't.
For
And
all we know, Spencer broke her out and stuck her in a vault somewhere.
Or dyed her hair red and has a new secretary.
Maybe.
Hard to say.
I would not put it past him at this point.
Yeah, because Spencer does have his own agenda, and it's been hinted at that it involves this Museum of Dolls thing.
Yeah. And more than one person, Spencer and more than one Lulabelle, have mentioned that she's an industry.
Yeah.
Right? She's not just a person. She's so much more than that.
And you don't want to turn off the money train just because the original one happens to be dying of cancer.
And that's so gross to me. Not the cancer, well, also the cancer part, but just that a person ceases to be a human being and starts becoming
A commodity.
a commodity, an industry, a business. Gross.
Well, and there's another point that I think is interesting to bring up here, and that is the fact that Lulabelle apparently gave tissue samples enough for 13 portraits.
Yes.
We know that now.
Yes.
13 is the last one who can ever be.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that the original Lulabelle is alive.
Yes.
Does that mean that if you're sick or have cancer, as we presume she does, it's not explicitly stated.
No, we are
that
assuming.
you can no longer give tissue?
Maybe?
Is it legitimately that because she's ill, her DNA is messed up now and she can't?
Yeah, because to take new samples would be to take them from the current Lulabelle,
And
who
you'd
is
end up with
unwell.
with an unwell portrait?
Yeah, that's my assumption.
Yeah.
That is the impression I got.
Hard to say.
Is that you can't make any more Lulabelles now because the original Lulabelle is, quote unquote, ruined.
But on the other hand, Prudence was made to look like Lulabelle before she was plastic surgeried.
Mm.
So I suppose it's not impossible that she could have gotten reverse plastic surgery, though.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Here's my question, and I don't remember if I asked this in the Prudence chapter. Is she illegal? She bleeds.
No, it's mentioned that she's just a very realistic portrait.
Like crazy upgrades.
And
She's got lines on her hands and stuff.
yeah, though 13 does note when she meets the real Lulabelle that now that she's up close and looking at the lifelines on her hand, she's like, oh, how could I have ever mistaken the ones on all the portraits that are passing off as real?
Next to the real thing, like, oh, you are obviously real.
Yeah.
So 2 chapters left.
A lot gets answered in this chapter.
A lot got answered in this chapter.
Yeah, and there's definitely some sinister motivation going on back at the villa. And that is where 13 and the artist are going next. Because 13 comes back down and is like, I didn't kill her. She's still alive. However, there's someone who needs to die. And
let's go murder Lulabelle.
I have a plan. And they indeed set off back to the villa to commit one last murder.
Mm-hmm. So this one will be interesting. I think this is our potential for like a villain monologue. Maybe more answers. Maybe more questions.
Maybe more. Who knows?
Who knows? We will find out.
And
So close to the end.
And will the magician figure it into it one last time?
I kind of think he might.
Or Velasquez?
Oh, I don't know about Velasquez.
The other faces who've popped up a couple times.
Yeah.
Will we see them one last time? Hard
Maybe.
to say.
Maybe.
I also, just before we wrap up, also want to mention, I did like that, number one, Lulabelle doesn't seem surprised to see 13 there.
No.
Number two, quietly asks for like a cigarette, and 13 pulls out her pack of cigarettes, which she's only smoked like 2 and did not like.
No.
Slides it under the pillow for her, and then Lulabelle gives her just like a little wink. like a little conspiratorial wink.
Yeah.
Like there's a weird sort of like affection there. Like almost between like a mother and daughter, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah. It was charming and sweet.
Like it's clear to me Lulabelle knows exactly who 13 was.
Well, obviously.
To the extent that she knew she was a portrait of her, that she'd come to visit, and was just like, "Can you bum me a smoke before you go?"
And like, if you want to get like deeper on the meta level for that, Of course, death would come and deliver one last cigarette,
Yeah,
Right?
that's a nice little thing too.
right?
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how this book ends now.
Yeah. But we will perhaps see how it ends next chapter. I want to say that there's one more chapter and then like a conclusion.
I think so. I will check.
So we've got 2 more to go before our big book club episode. So you'll want to read up on chapter 13, Death, in time for next week. In the meantime, of course, as always, you can give us a little rating and a review because we appreciate those.
Oh, yes, please. We love digital appreciation.
Yes, we also like to get messages from you via social media.
Yes, please. We like those too. You can find us on a selection of social medias. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Goodreads, and Blue Sky. We're at the Read Along on most of them.
You can also send us an email.
Yes, please. We are thereadalong@gmail.com.
And with that said, as always, we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Maybe it's a boss battle.
Thank you for joining us on The Read Along with your hosts, Anita and Scott Bourgeois. All Read Along music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Cover art is by Aaron Beaver. Be sure to join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Read Along, and check out our group on Goodreads.com.